Good morning, everyone. My name is Jen Talkman, and I am the Vice President of NESF. And so welcome. I know a lot of you came from very far away to be here today, so thanks for joining us for the day. We've got an exciting agenda ahead. For those of you who haven't taken a glance at it, in your program, right inside the front page is the agenda for the day, so you can see where we're keeping track. And I also just wanted to point out, while I have everybody's fresh attention and you're not all ready to hit the highway at the end of the day, is this fall is NESF's 40th anniversary. So our conference this year is extra important. On the back, there's actually a little bit of information about it, and certainly see our website to get more information on coming to the fall conference. With that, Eric Hall.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Hall. I'm Dean of the Internship and Career Center here at Endicott College, and I wanted to welcome you all to campus today. We're really thrilled to be hosting the 2016 NESF Spring Collaborative. For us, the hallmark program of Endicott is our internship program, where students are required to complete 3 of those experiences prior to graduation. So to have so many professionals in this space who are dedicated and passionate about experiential education really means a lot to us. So I thank you all for coming, the NESF members, the Endicott faculty, staff, and administration for being here. It really is a pleasure to have you all. And from what I've heard, I think we have record-setting numbers here today. So thank you all for your interest and your registration, for coming out. We think we have a terrific agenda. Before I introduce our keynote, I did want to thank a few key people on the Endicott side who really were instrumental in making this happen. The first is Kate Kraust, our Associate Director of the Career Center and President of NESF. Kate actually couldn't be here today. She has a really poor excuse. She actually had her second child last week, and they're both doing very well, and Kate really took the ball in terms of the planning and developing what this conference would look like, and she has just kept going. She was sending us emails from the hospital. It's pretty incredible. So I know she's disappointed she couldn't be here, but she's excited how many of you came out today. I also wanted to thank Cindy Richard, our Director of Internship, and Helen Eaton, our Program Coordinator, for all the work that they did in collaborating with Kate on the planning and logistics. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Laura Rossi-Lee, our VP and Dean of the Undergraduate College, and our President, Dr. Wiley, for all of the encouragement and support that they gave us in planning this event. It really wouldn't have been possible without that, so thank you. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote, Dr. Farouk Day. Dr. Farouk Day is the Dean of Career Education and Associate Vice Provost for Student Affairs at Stanford University. He's leading the expansion of career education at Stanford and developing Vision 2020, a reinvented model of career and professional development for college students and alumni. Dr. Day has held leadership roles at Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, the University of Florida, the National Association for Colleges and Employers, and the American College Personnel Association. His credentials include a PhD in Higher Education Administration, EDS in Higher Education Administration, MBA, MED in Counseling Psychology, and a BBA in Finance, so he hasn't been busy. Author of several articles and book chapters, Dr. Day has served as a keynote speaker at many conferences in the US and around the world, and like I said, we are thrilled to have him here, so please join me in welcoming Farouk Day up to the stage.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that kind introduction. Let me first thank Endicott College and Eric and Dr. Wiley for the great hospitality. I've really enjoyed my time here so far, and it's beautiful weather. I am told that it's like this all the time, so I might consider moving here at some point. I also want to thank the NESF, is that what it's called? Yeah, the NESF leadership for inviting me. I'm just really honored to be here and looking forward to sharing some of my thoughts and some of the work that we've been doing. And I also should say that every time I do these talks and somebody gives an introduction, I feel like I have to apologize for the degrees that I've gotten. So, and also explain why I went and got all this education. It's really my dad, you know, he just, he never, after I finished my PhD, he asked me when I was gonna go for the second one. So, in a conversation today about career and exploration and experiential education, I think that that's probably quite fitting. So we're going to be talking today about transformational trends and career and experiential education. And I really want to start this conversation with a story of a student who I met last year. Her name is Nina Mufli. You might have heard about her if you are very present in social media. And if you are, by the way, my Twitter handle is on all of the slides, and I encourage you to tweet. So if you've heard about her, this is a student who graduated from UC Irvine and was struggling to find a job for actually a couple of years. It has really taken her a long time. And then finally she decided to take matters in her own hands and started her own campaign. She was a big fan of a company that she uses as a customer, Airbnb, and really wanted to work there. And after many failed attempts of trying to land a job there, she started her own online campaign that where she created a page and started sharing more about herself and why she really wants to work at Airbnb. So, and you can also follow her on Twitter, and the hashtag is Nina4Airbnb. You can find a lot more about her. In this campaign, she also started talking about or explaining what she would do it for Airbnb and how Airbnb could take the world over. She gave a very good analysis of Airbnb. She explored strengths and opportunities and weaknesses and threats of Airbnb and the potential markets that they could go into. And not only that, she also talked about why it's important for Airbnb to explore other ways of doing business and the new ventures. And she provided a detailed plan for how she could help them do that. So not only an analysis of Airbnb, but then also an entire strategic plan, a proposal, if you will, for Airbnb of saying this is where you could go and this is how you could use some of her marketing and branding skills to achieve that. She's gave an analysis of the markets in the Middle East and how Airbnb could really grow in that part of the world, and it has not grown much. And she explained why she really loves Airbnb. She connected her story with the story of the employer, and why it matters to her, why working for Airbnb would be meaningful to her. After doing all of that, she also tried to draw a really clear fit between her and the company. Why I belong at Airbnb. All of this is out of this just one page. And she gave some options to Airbnb. I could work for you in marketing, in business, in operations. Hell, I'll just even carry coffee for you. I'll do anything. So as you could see, actually, contrary to maybe perhaps popular opinion, millennials are willing to go get coffee and pick up dry cleaning, etc., and do, if you will, meaningless work if it puts them on the path towards meaningful work, if it puts them on the path towards something that they really want to in the future. So, and there are many examples like this, like Nina. So within a year of this story coming out, it went viral. Her website had over 450,000 views. She received over 2,000 emails, 14,000 LinkedIn views, millions of impressions on Twitter and other social media outlets, and dozens of interviews from very high-profile companies in Silicon Valley, in California, and all over the country. She's also was invited for interviews on TV, on the radio. She was on MSNBC, and it sort of took off in a different trajectory. She also landed an interview with Airbnb, by the way, but she told me that she never got the job still. Even with all of this, she never got the job. But what came out of this story was actually a few job offers, and she ended up picking one that ended up being very meaningful to her. This is a really interesting story of someone who built something like this out of frustration. when I asked her, and I said, "This was genius, Nina. How did you do this?" And by the way I met her is I read about this, so I just emailed her and I said, "I'd love to have coffee. This is really interesting." And she said, to me it's not genius. I was just frustrated and tired of getting rejected, and I just wanted to do something different, and it somehow worked. So she decided to take it to the next step and created a flowchart for how one can search for an opportunity, for a job, to connect with opportunity in this new digital age. And she gave a step-by-step process for using branding and marketing skills to really brand yourself. It's really fascinating. What's behind the story, what's really interesting in this story is that we're all dealing with a whole new generation of Ninas out there. It is the largest generation, actually. They have officially surpassed the Generation X, my generation, and then also the baby boomers. And it continues to grow. They are here to stay, and they're growing, and they're changing our world of work in many ways. This is the digital generation. They prefer communicating online via text messages, social media. After they visit or searching something online, they prefer communicating with customer support online, not picking up the phone or visiting in person. It is also a generation that's struggling a bit, that the average college debt today is just under $30,000, and many of them are coming back and moving home for the first year or two after graduation, so we're seeing them back in the nest. 19% of today's college graduates are in low-skilled service jobs. These are your barista jobs, restaurant jobs, etc., making $24,000 per year. And 25% are in admin support jobs, making about $37,000 a year. This is within their first year or two, sometimes two, and after graduation. This means that transition is bumpy for these students. The transition to meaningful work is somehow bumpy. What we're also seeing that 14% of today's college graduates within 6 months, they are still looking for opportunities or the right opportunities. But what we're not asking in these surveys is, while you are taking this low service or low skills job, while you're taking a barista job in a coffee shop, what else is going on in your life? Are you freelancing? Perhaps are you auditioning? Are you still working towards or putting yourself on the path towards meaningful work? I think sometimes we look at these outcomes and we immediately go towards placement ratings and the purpose of higher education, and that's been the conversation that has really led the headlines in the last few years. When I started doing these talks a few years ago, I used to use this slide that really show the student going from point A to point B and jumping a cliff, if you will, and for us, being there to try to support them to go from college to career. I really had this mental image of the transition from college to career to look just like what you see here. But what I have found after speaking with more and more students, millennials especially today, is that that's really not what's going on. Actually, college is part of the journey, and what they are really seeking is meaningful work, meaning like they're not just after that first job, they really want to be successful throughout their career, and the experience in college is part of that. They're not two separate steps. There is the work that they have in college is experiential in itself. They are building connections and relationships and connecting with networks. They're gaining skills and applying them in different experiences. The college experience is giving them an opportunity to lead student organizations, to take internships, to take part-time jobs, to connect with world-renowned faculty, and to connect with one another, most importantly, and to build community. And that part of that process is in itself the path towards meaningful work. So for us as college educators, I think what we need is to just reframe a little bit of what we are doing, although the pressures that are coming from especially parents who are paying those bills and from those students are certainly understandable. If we're looking at this through, if we're looking at this like a hierarchy of needs, if you will, we certainly need to take care of food and shelter, and we want to make sure that students, when they graduate from college, are taking on some jobs that they are satisfied with. But we also want to challenge them back and have them have a longer term view of the benefits of their college education and the choices that they make after college, where those may lead. For example, I think the best example that I can use for this is Hollywood producer Gail Hurd. You might know her, or you might not have heard the name. She's a Stanford alum, and she's the producer of actually one of my favorite shows on TV, The Walking Dead. TWD watchers here, we have a few. She's also the producer of The Terminator, and when she tells her story, she'll tell you that she started her career picking up dry cleaning and coffee and doing all of that for a very famous Hollywood producer, that was the job that she landed. And while the work was not really what did not align with directly with her dreams and aspirations, it put her on the path towards meaningful work. It got her one step closer to a connection, to being just in that environment, in that ecosystem. And what she asked for is, from time to time, just allow me to be in those meetings, to just basically learn and connect with people. And there she is now, a successful Hollywood producer. That's the example that I can give, is that it's not just about that first job after graduation. So all of these conversations are pushing us now in higher education to push our boundaries, to reimagine and rethink college career education and how we help students make that transition or go on that journey towards meaningful work. And we are now forced to transform our models, to transform our structures, our teams, and how we deliver these types of programs and these types of initiatives. That's why I love so much the theme of this conference, transformation. And you know, when you Google the image transformation, what the first image that comes up, it's the image of a butterfly transforming from a caterpillar. That's it really interesting how we get our cues for how to do this from nature just around us. The way a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly is through self-digestion. You know, that it eats its own body in order to emerge as this new butterfly. And we can see this concept all around us. You could see it most recently in the Apple products, in order for the iPhone to take over and to go into, and Apple to go into this new age of success. They essentially had to eat their own product, eat the iPod, you know, so in order for the iPhone to take over. And that's a cue for us in higher education and career services, career education, is to try to think of how we can reinvent ourselves, and sometimes it might, that's what we might have to do. So in order to do that, I think we just need to take a little bit of a perspective. This is something that I always like to do, is to just try to look at the history of where we've been and where we are and where we're headed. And what we have seen since 2008, and the spotlight that has been on college career centers all around the country, actually is really nothing new. This has happened every time the economic conditions have changed. Since we started, you know, when you think about the first days of career development as a profession, with Frank Parson in the Boston area, actually, with a public service house, in order to help immigrants coming into the United States, the vocational guidance model was born in the early 1900s. Do you know who was providing career development and career guidance to students? It was the faculty. The faculty were the mentors, were the advisors, were the faculty, were, you know, the teachers, the researchers. It was not until the 1920s that higher education needed to make a shift and really specialize this area a little bit more, because of a need for teacher education, that colleges and universities were producing more teachers, and we needed to find a way to connect them with the world of work. That world has changed again about 20 years later, post-World War II, with the GI Bill and veterans coming back to college. And then colleges were under pressure to place them literally in a manufacturing economy. So there are a lot of jobs there, and then that's where placement offices were created. Or during the era prior to that, the teacher's vocational education, still less than 40% of colleges and universities were offering these types of service. So it was not really that common. It was not until the placement era that that became a thing. That's when placement offices were born, and it was really to serve that need. The economy changed again in the 70s and 80s into an industry economy, so more broader, more options for college students. It's no longer a manufacturing economy, and therefore now students are thinking about what they want to do. They need counsel and guidance, not just placement. And that's when the counseling model was created for in college career centers, and you saw an expansion of these placement offices into career counseling centers with one-on-one interactions and guidance and assessments and a lot of things that we still do today, certainly. Not only those. The 1990s and the dot-com boom brought employers back to our campuses, and they were competing for students with a vengeance at that time. There were bonuses thrown at students, and at this point, these career counseling offices began to realize that we could actually play even a bigger role in this. So we're going to invest in employer relations and connecting with our friends in the corporate world and perhaps make a little money out of it, generate some revenue. That was in the 90s, and in the 2000s. That was accelerated with technology and with social media in the 2000s, this concept of networking, and for us to become facilitators of networks rather than only one-on-one counselors in offices. So, and then 2010 hit, so you can track this almost every 20 and 30 years. And the reason we've been asking this question of what now, what is the future, where are we going, is because of the economic conditions post-2008. And what we know from that time is that there has been the question looming around the country of around the value of higher education. Is it worth it to go to college? Is it worth it to go to this college versus that college? Is it worth it to take on this much debt? Where is the information that will help me make an informed decision? Even government stepped in with the college scorecards to help inform families with these types of decisions. We also know that parents are more involved than ever before in what's happening on college campuses. Yes, they have landed in some of your offices. They have bulldozed through those doors, and they have talked to you. But they also care. They want to engage, and universities are getting smarter at engaging them and channeling that energy, and even turning it into a development mechanism. But that adds more pressure for us as college educators. But you know what we have not been talking a lot about in our spaces, in our conferences, is what matters to students. In addition to these things, and in addition to all of the trends that we're seeing with millennials, what really is true is that this generation, more than what we have seen in the past, cares about this idea of meaningful work. They want to do work that matters to them. In a program where we hosted Meg Whitman, the CEO of Hewlett-Packard, she said this, in publicly and loud to the audience. Said, when I came out of graduate school, I just wanted a job. That's what I wanted. And she's talking about her, not necessarily representing her generation, but perhaps. But that's not how she experiences today's students. They want to know, is this role going to make a difference? Is this company going to make a difference? And yes, they want their boss's job, their boss's job within a year or two. We are hearing some of that, and we're having to work with that a little bit. But they really want to do work that matters, and that's been really interesting. That is a question that we're hearing a lot, certainly on our campus, but then also elsewhere around the country, that this generation wants to make a difference in addition to paying back the loans. And sometimes they are making sacrifices. Sometimes they are making choices and taking the less paying job because it's putting them on the path towards meaningful work. I say this because it helps us understand a little bit some of the stats, the scary stats that we see that I showed earlier, that while some students are really struggling and we need to help them, others, they're just like the Hollywood producer, they're really making those choices because they're having a long-term view of for their future. So meaningful work is a question, since we started speaking about it, it's a question that I get a lot, is what is it, and how do you define it? It's a very elusive expression or definition. So the way we have defined it is this combination of self-awareness and of awareness of the world of work and meaningful experiences and connections. It's actually nothing earth-shattering. It's everything that we already do on college campuses, but just packaged in a way that can really be meaningful to students. We help them understand who they are, who they want to be, their values, their interests, their skills, and the world of work, gather information around it, and hear it from people in the world of work themselves, gain meaningful experiences, and build meaningful connections. And when you look at that entire model, do we do a good job in each one of those areas? The reason I gave the evolution of career services over time is because they were really, there was an era where we mostly did counseling. We mostly focused on the knowledge of self and the knowledge of the world of work. And then at some point we really focused on the networks, etc. But are we really a comprehensive program or a model that really touches on all of these things in order to put the students on the path towards meaningful work? We need to work with students as life design thinkers, using design thinking methodology, which is something that we do quite a bit, and to use the words of Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, for students to be the startups of themselves. How do they treat their whole self, their own person, as a startup? So if you're starting a new company and you're using this design thinking methodology, where you're going through stages of empathy and empathizing with what the consumer needs and defining what the problem and ideating and creating ideas for how you're going to do it, and then prototype a few things and come back and test and retest until you find the right solution, and then you pick a path and you continue to test and retest. What would that look like if you actually did that for yourself, if you empathized with your own interests and what you are really thinking about in terms of options, and you define the problems or the obstacles that are in front of you and how you can solve them, and ideate, create ideas for what you could pursue, and then prototype through experiential education opportunities. So, and it's not only the internships, it is the externships, it is the site visits, you could also do that with student jobs, with campus involvement, with even just shadowing people. Any type of meaningful experience that just gives you the additional information in order for you to make decisions about your future. All of this is really important because we are in the age of new ways of doing, new ways of thinking, new ways of working, and new ways of connecting. Our students are doing all of these things that we have all done, but they're doing it in a different way because of the expansion of technology, because of the world becoming smaller. In just this next minute that I'm going to share this, there will be 2.4 million searches on Google. There will be over 700,000 Facebook logins. There will be over 300,000 new tweets that will, hopefully some of you are among those. Just within this minute, there will be over 1,300 Uber rides. All of these things are happening at just really massive scales, and it's really interesting when you watch all of these things. Uber does not own a single taxi in the world, but they own a lot of data, and they own a lot of servers, certainly. Google does not own a single library, but all of this information that's organized for the rest of the world. And you can really go around and just look at how the world has changed in front of us. But there is one fundamental thing that has not changed, that still remains, and that we are human beings. We are creatures of, we are tribal creatures. We are creatures of communities. We do everything we like to do in community and connection through connections. It's just now at a bigger and larger and faster scale. We are modern tribes that are connecting and communicating and hanging out and via Facebook and Twitter and online chats, etc. And that's really what's happening. You take that concept back to your campus and you ask the question, what is happening on my campus and how are we dealing with that? This is all forcing us to really rethink or think about how we interact with our students in a different way. When I ask employers who come and recruit on my campus and other campuses, it's very clear that they see the world this way also. They look at our students as talent communities. They don't look at them as just individuals. They're trying to find the tribes on your campus where they can find the most talent within those tribes. They're looking at those tribes by majors. They're looking at those tribes or communities by their skills, by any other affiliation groups, whether it's gender or race or affiliations that really matter to that employer. And they're looking at it by geography because they want to get the highest yield possible. Where is that student from, or where are they most likely to go after they graduate in order to recruit them? And the question that I ask is, within our own offices of as career educators, are we organized this way? Are we organized in a way that maximizes, that leverages the connections within these types of communities on our own campuses? Or are we still handling business in a very transactional manner? That is a really key question that still looms for many campuses around. And what I suggest to all of my colleagues, and what we have been trying to do in my institution, is really to look at our work through the lens of an ecosystem, not a place. It is not about what my office can do for students. It's about how we can leverage the entire university ecosystem with students and alumni themselves, with the faculty and administrators, with employers themselves, with parents and families, all of these different stakeholders, how we can connect them and leverage them into a model so that no matter where the student goes and who they interact with, they are getting connected with opportunity. They're getting connected with meaning. They are on the path to meaningful work. Does that all make sense? So how do you do that is the question that sometimes we get is, okay, this all sounds grand at a very abstract level, but what is the practice? How do you do that? And what we have chosen is to really create a culture of happenstance. That is, first of all, a recognition that most of us have probably found our opportunities, our careers, through what we would consider luck, chance. By chance, I just happened to be in this meeting at this conference, meeting with this person, and then sort of, my career took a different route. And the idea behind happenstance theory is that luck is really no accident, that what you do is you maximize the opportunities in front of you in order to increase the likelihood that you will be in the right place at the right time in front of the right person who will open the right door that you would be interested in and that you would recognize. And steps to do that, or the 5 principles of happenstance, are curiosity, that we increase students' curiosity, that you're not going to wait until you know before you make a decision. You're going to continue to be curious, and we're going to nurture that curiosity for you through different experiences that we give you. It's through persistence, it's through flexibility, that it's that to be flexible, it's not only one option that you will get to pursue. It's through optimism, which is really critical for this generation to hear and to be encouraged to, in terms of practicing. That uncertainty is a good thing, and it's part of the process for them to become comfortable with uncertainty. So a major shift for our offices is to no longer attempt to predict or to help them predict where they will be in 5 years or 10 years. I believe that that's a really hard question and an unfair question to answer. I don't know where I'll be in 5 or 10 years, but I have some interests, and I'm optimistic about the future, and I'm comfortable in that uncertainty, and I'm going to continue to do things that I'm interested in, and believe that at some point I'll be in the right place at the right time in front of the right person who will open the right door for me. And to take risks, to be daring, to try things that scare them a little bit. These principles, how do you do them, is through a lot of very intentional structured and unstructured interventions and programmatic activities that I believe all of your offices already do. So the career treks, for example, many of your offices do them. We do them as well, taking students on these trips to visit with different companies and different organizations, and meet with alumni, meet with employers. That experience is usually life-changing. I hear that from students all the time. They come back and they say, I feel like I have so much more clarity now. Moving away from the workshop delivery model that does not engage our students, and what we have moved into is this idea of meetups. We're really going to be a tribe. We're going to be a community. So we're going to have discussions around in circles around topics of interest, and the topics would be about your future, about careers, about experiences, about how to prepare for things, and we're going to engage you in the conversation. So when you ask a question, I'm going to ask another student to help answer that, and it's facilitated with our career coaches. It's really shifting our model, and we have really shifted our work towards this idea of career coaching in general, where we're really putting a lot more of that responsibility on the student to take ownership of their own development and their own growth. We are measuring outcomes differently, and the idea of outcomes has always been looming, and I think many of our offices do different interesting things, but the bottom line is that they matter. They matter to tell the story, but also they matter to tell us where our pain points are. And I usually recommend just focusing on 4 outcomes. I think the trouble sometimes that we get into is that we pick too many outcomes to measure and too long of surveys to administer. But if you just pick a few and you focus on those, you will see that you will make so much more progress. What I have chosen, or what we have chosen, is to focus on awareness, because we have learned that students lack the awareness of the resources that are available to them on campus. They don't know. We've seen that from many students. We've seen that from our surveys, that they have no idea that there is someone assigned or who's supposed to work with them to help them with their career exploration needs. The engagement needs to be measured, because for most of our campuses, this is not a mandatory activity. This is an optional activity, and there are, I think, conversations about whether it should be optional or not. I believe that it should be optional. It's probably one of the last things that they get to do after they leave college. I'm not going to force them to take ownership of their own career development after they graduate. They really need to take ownership on their own, but we could facilitate that a little bit. So the engagement becomes really hard. You know, how do we engage students who are nervous about conversations about careers, who are incredibly busy, who might not prioritize this, or who might think that they can just put this off until their senior year and then come and try to take advantage of these resources? We just have to become branding agents and marketing agents in order to do this in a really different way, in order to increase our engagement. And we want to increase their confidence about themselves, but then also confidence in the resources that are available to them. All of these 3 measures, you know, will lead to better destinations eventually. More of your students are aware of who they are and the resources available to them. If they engage, if they're confident, they will do well transitioning and moving forward. And with destinations, for us to not only measure destinations that are first, destinations after college, for us we have to really think about destinations 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out. What is the long-term view, so that we're not only thinking about that transactional piece of you got a college degree, we give you, you got a job and you have a salary, and then you're on your way. Once you graduate from this university, you are a lifetime member of this university, and your success never ends. And that's really the philosophy that needs to be connected deeply with career and experiential education offices. With confidence, for example, we have really taken on, we have taken our surveys that were long and would not get a lot of response rates, and we ask simply just one question now. How likely are you to recommend a friend to this program, to this activity, to our career education programs to our office, in our annual survey, on a scale of 0 to 10. That is what is called a Net Promoter Score. This question might look familiar because you might have gotten it from your Sears clerk, or if you bought a car, or if you bought a fridge, or whatever. It is widely used in business and retail and hospitality, etc. And it gives you an idea of if the student is it's a loyalty score. If they are that engaged and they're excited and that interested in the work that you've been doing with them, that they are willing to become a promoter for you by giving you a score of 9 and 10. If you have more people giving you 9s and 10s than people giving you 0s to 6, then you have more promoters on your campus who are promoting your brand and who are increasing your engagement overall. The opposite is not good. The opposite is a negative Net Promoter Score, that you have more people telling others, stay away from this office. They will hurt you, or they will not give you a good advice. And the reason I like this score is because it raises the bar. The 7 and 8, we throw them out. 7 and 8 is not acceptable, so we don't even calculate them in the formula. This is a controversial Net Promoter Score is a controversial piece. I've gone through several debates and arguments with my own team for over a year and a half about it after we implemented it, and then until finally I said, we are never talking about this again. So I've heard enough, we're gonna continue doing it. So now they've made peace with it. How we measure data matters, and how we interact with the students matters, and how we are leveraging technology also matters. When you look at technology and how it has evolved over time, during the age of mainframe technology, where it was all to process data or process information, and then we moved to automation, and then we moved to using technology just to really facilitate access for the user experience. And then finally, in the 2000s especially, it was all about connecting. It was all about, the world of internet. That was it. Technology transformed to serve that purpose mainly, to connect. And now we are in an age where it's all about how data can be leveraged to gain insights, to predict the future, to predict decisions or actions from our users. This is what's been happening in technology in the world, and I will let you be the judge of what's been happening in technology in our field and where you think we will be there. I have my own opinion, and I will only share that I am sure we're not in the last one. We're not in the predictive analytics, and perhaps we're somewhere else, but I'll let you be the judge on that. The bottom line is that this is really important because this will help us scale our efforts. We can never add more staff or enough staff to serve every single student. But the idea is to have the right model that aligns with how this generation works, and then use technology to really scale those efforts so that we can touch every single student in our campus communities. This is really important because that's how that's how our students use technology and everything else. I like to use the example of Netflix, for example, and I like to use it because I'm a Netflixer. I watch now everything on Netflix. One of my favorite things about Netflix is when I log on, or when I'm on the platform, it recommends things that I should watch, and it is all the time right. Like when I follow the recommendations, I think, wow, like they've really got me right. And I can see this with my Facebook notes. I can see this with my LinkedIn activities. I love the people you may know features in some of the social media that comes out, and all of that is happening because of smart algorithms that are written to use your behavior, to use your profile, and to use your connections and make recommendations based on what you might want to do next. What would that be like for our students? If based on their behavior on our college campuses and the activities that they attend and the classes that they go to and the faculty that they're connected with and their friends within your college campus and the information sessions by employers that they've visited, perhaps the jobs that they have applied to, all of those interactions, if they started creating some sort of recommended activities for students to use or to do, this could really be transformational for us, even though it's widely available. And what's interesting here is that our students get this everywhere else, so they understand when they don't have it on your campus that it's lacking. They see it and they know that if you don't have it, if I don't have it, then my campus is behind the times, because they get it on Netflix, they get it everywhere else, especially those students who are more tech savvy than others. So technology is not an option. We have to do it, and there is even a hierarchy of technology needs that I developed based on just several forums and focus groups that I ran the last couple of years. And what I've discovered here is that in terms of students' needs of what they are looking for in technologies, that it goes from intuitive to social and then to fun. That the food and shelter for them is that your technology needs to be intuitive. If it is not, they will log off immediately. They need to be able to navigate to get to where they need to get to fairly immediately. It needs to be social, because everything else is. It needs to be able to connect them with other people, with communities, with tribes, with opportunities. And it needs also to be interesting and fun, that it's gamified a little bit. Some might say that we are catering too much to this generation and we want to turn everything into a video game for them, but it's actually, I don't think that's what's really happening, because what we're doing is we're trying to engage them. We're really fighting for their attention because of the many options that they have in front of them. All of these things that I mentioned force us as college educators to change our identity, to change our skills, to become the educators of the future. Looking at this and looking at college career services of the past especially, and how we have worked in past models. We've been generalized, we've been transactional, we protect turfs. This is my office, you don't do that job fair, you don't do this event. We've been working on models that are resource and time intensive, that we might even appear intimidating. I've heard that from students many times because of the way we dress or because of just the word career in our title. We've been counselors, advisors, we focus on one-on-one interactions, we value that. All of these things that you see on the left column, in this new tech world, in this new world where we engage students in a different way, they expect us to be customized or to provide customized initiatives for them. They need us to become experts in the areas that they are interested in. They need us to leverage the ecosystem that's around this university and to help connect them with alumni and with employers. They expect us to be connection hubs for them. They want us to really work in a different way, and for us to do it with the lack of resources, we have to find a way to scale this, to scale these efforts, and technology is one way to do it. We also need to become, as you heard me say earlier, branding experts. We're not only counselors, we're not only advisors, we're not only internship coordinators or career fair managers. We have to be branding experts, which means that we need to develop our skills a little bit more. These can be a little bit intimidating for some of us, but I think that these are skills that can be learned. If all you have to do is create a Twitter account and lurk for a little, and then follow, and then we are at an age where almost everyone can be a marketer these days. Nina did it. She created a page that got 450 visits, and got lots of companies to contact her. So we are in an era where we have to adapt and we have to change our ways. We have to be that caterpillar that goes through that self-digestion process. So in my opinion, I think that the career educators of the future are collaborative, are focused, are daring, and are positive, and most importantly, are agile. That we are agile in this new world and working with this new generation of college students. In order for us to really be successful with that, what's been happening on many college campuses is Also, an additional authority that's been given to college career educators on these college campuses. So you've seen us in many campuses move up in the organizational chart, have different reporting structures. You see leaders of career centers that have high or elevated titles that give them additional influence on campus and additional ways to connect with the ecosystem, and that's been really helpful. And some other campuses are considering that, but I would say that that's definitely a future trend that's happening now, and it's making it harder for these campuses to compete for talent as they hire college career educators for their campuses, because now it's, well, where do I sit in your org chart? Do I have a seat on your table, and am I part of the decision making? And sometimes titles communicate or single some of those things. How is your infrastructure telling that story? And infrastructure tells a story to our students, to our parents, to our donors, alumni, to employers, and to our employees, people who work there. This is a picture from the University of Miami's Career Center that just got updated within the last couple of years, to tell a different story through art, through structure, through its own building. How is your data telling that your story? Is it just in a very long annual report that very few people read, or how many of you are doing the infographics that tell the story with quick numbers and that are given to different campus campus stakeholders to tell that story? The idea here is for all of us to build this epic user experience. Every company out there has an epic user experience. What I mean by this is, or epic user narrative, the idea here is that we try to look at the work that we do, but not through the lens of our organizational structures or the lens of how we see the world as educators. We often get into that trap, and sometimes we forget to look at the experience through the user, the student themselves. So you look at Airbnb, their user narrative is pretty simple. It starts with a guest and a host. And a host has a supply of a room, and a guest needs a room, and then it goes from there, and then there you go. Then all the way to the end, you have a business viability. So what is the user narrative for your campus as it relates to career and experiential education, from the day they enroll to the day they graduate? And what are the influence points? When you do it this way, it's no longer about the work of one office. It becomes about the alumni association, fundraising, faculty, student organizations, your office as career and experiential education, the president's office, all of these points that are influencing this user experience until they finish. So it becomes the experience of the whole. So, and for that user narrative to have magic moments. Do you know what I mean by magic moments? Try to think about any experience that you've had with a company that you like, and there's usually that one moment that just makes you just get more loyal to that company, or just get more excited about working there, and then it could be just meeting your favorite Disney character, at least certainly I see that with my kids. I don't know what it is about kids when you tell them we're going to Disney and they start screaming around the house, but that's what they're imagining, in my opinion. So what I want to ask you is, for those of you how many of you here use Uber, for example? All right, try to think, what is the magic moment in that user experience? In the whole process of that narrative, there's usually one or two moments, and it could be different for different people, where you feel like, I feel like I get it, or I feel like I'm taken care of. For those of you who use Facebook, how many use Facebook? Very good. You can try to think of one or two magic moments that you've had within the last year within Facebook, and it could be really different. Or even LinkedIn. What I think, these are just my guesses, is that on Uber, certainly when I'm up there, is just seeing the car that's coming to pick me up on a map gives me, like an extra inch or two under my heel. Like I feel like, they're getting close, except for when they get lost around the loop. The Facebook experience is really interesting, like on your birthday, when you get all of those birthday messages. How did we used to celebrate birthdays pre-Facebook, But it's kind of cool before you get to go home and you have I don't know, for some of us 200 messages, for some of us 50, or 1,000 in the case of millennials. It depends on how many friends you have there. One day I would tell you that, I got just slightly a little upset that I came home and didn't find something a little special for my birthday after getting 200 messages. So I told my wife that. I said, I have a lot of people who celebrated me, but you didn't do much. So it raises expectations unnecessarily. On LinkedIn, what's really interesting, I've asked quite a few people this, is how many of you actually do look at that who viewed you page? It's okay, you can admit it, it's all right. This is especially important when you're looking for a job. Like if you're interviewing and you submit a resume and then boom, you see that somebody from that employment place has viewed you, it gives you that magical moment like, oh, somebody cares, I'm relevant. That's the bottom line of all of this, is that it gives you that sense that you are more relevant now, and or just a little bit more relevant. So that's what I would ask back to you, is what is the magical experience for you or for your students as it relates to college career education? What we have tried to do at Stanford was really try to create this narrative for us, and I will share it with you here. We're trying to think about it as, or from the student's experience. Sound?
This mural is an illustration of the connections I've made through my years with Beam. Because our university has graduates every year, these people go off into the world and do amazing things, but they still care about Stanford students. And so the Stanford Alumni Mentoring Program is current students' way to connect with those folks. You can find somebody whose interests match yours, or who seems like they would be. Hi, my name is Marissa Messina. I'm a senior at Stanford now, and this mural is an illustration of the connections I've made through my years with Beam. Because our university has graduates.
I got it, no problem. So I'm gonna be agile and move on, and also I'm aware of time. So my apologies. You can see the screen okay, right? So I'll move this really quickly. So how we've done it here at Stanford is that we created a model of career connections that helps us put students on the path towards meaningful work. What we are trying to do through this user experience is get students to design their lives, design their future, and design their idea of meaningful work. That we want to put them on the path towards venturing into opportunities, whether they're internships or jobs or any types of graduate school, any types of opportunities, and pursue their dreams, define them further and pursue their dreams. And we have an organizational structure that's really adaptive to to support this type of model. These three elements are all around a very central element of connections. We want every single student to connect with meaning, with who they are, with meaning, with what's meaningful to them, with opportunity, and with especially community. That we feel that it's by connecting them to the community, by doing a lot of work with our alumni, employers, with other students, with the faculty, that we're really able to live this model quite well. So what we have created is, this is just an image of our org chart, 3 teams especially, or essentially, that is facing to the college campus. It's career communities that are by college discipline. It's career catalysts that develop relationships with students, and career ventures that work directly with employers. Our career communities are embedded in the college communities or in the school communities. They work with the faculty directly. They work with the academic departments to develop programs and to create communities of students that help one another in the self-exploration. The ventures are working based on industry interests. So they are working with employers and they engage them in those communities. And the catalysts are working to develop alumni mentoring programs and experiential education programs. They are taking students on treks. They are teaching students, so they oversee all of our college career courses so that we can engage our students. And then we have our Design Life Lab that's part of the Catalyst group. And that's an initiative that had started from our D School, Design School. And it's essentially using design thinking principles to teach career and professional development to students, all from design thinking. And it's with the faculty and with the fellows there, but it all reports up to our Catalyst unit. All of these transitions only happened because we recognize the history of where we've been, where we are, and where we're headed in the future. That's what allowed us to really reinvent ourselves and be that caterpillar. All of this is online, and you can see the history of all of these dimensions. You can see it in an article that I have on LinkedIn called 10 Future Trends in College Career Services. So you can get this, don't worry if you don't. If you don't have time to read it. But I go back to this idea that it's a journey. It's not a transition from one point to another. And this journey is about us moving from a transactional to a transformational model, that it's all about relationships. It's not about transactions. So that needed to be communicated through our brand at Stanford. That's why we moved us from being a career development center to becoming Stanford Career Education. And the idea here is that we created an acronym that students adopted really quickly. We became BEAM, which stands for Bridging Education, Ambition, and Meaningful Work. We are very clear about this, that we're educators, we educate, we're not here to place in jobs. We are everywhere, not a place, so we are connected to your faculty, to alums, to everyone. So, and there are no turfs on campus, and there are many more people who can do our jobs on campus, and we're here to empower that. And that meaning rules everything we do. It's about meaningful work. That brand has been an essential element of our transformation from where we've been to where we are. So what I would hope that this would do to all of us is hopefully give you enough information of what's been happening in our industry, and certainly in our example at Stanford, and to inspire us all to continue to lead change, not just embrace it. Certainly change has been happening, but for us to continue to be at the forefront of this. And there are great examples in the New England community. I've done a little bit of research in this area of some schools that are really doing some excellent work with hallmark internship programs like at Endicott or Northeastern or Hamilton doing some interesting work, or Middlebury, for example, doing some good work with funding for designing internships. So there's good work happening, and I would encourage all of us to continue that good work because our students deserve it. It's been my honor to be here with you this morning, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about all of these trends. And I believe as we transition into the panel, I think Dr. Wiley, we're ready to transition, I think, to the next portion. I'll moderate from here, but go right ahead. Yes. And I can just sit on the side.
It's a privilege for me to welcome you here to Endicott College, and for this fantastic opportunity to learn and to exchange ideas. And I'd like to thank Farouk for his guidance and leadership in this whole field. Absolutely phenomenal. I just would like to make two other additional comments. In 1939, Eleanor Tupper and her husband bought a little building on this campus and required every student in the two-year program, was a two-year college, to do internships and to be engaged. It was done between Thanksgiving and Christmas, when all the people here were fashion merchandising, retail majors, and they went to New York and to Boston and Chicago and worked in stores and did a variety of things. In the early 80s, the college gave up some of those feelings about internships and tried to become more of a pure liberal arts college. Enrollment plummeted, and in 1987, I was fortunate enough to come here as president, and we reinstated the whole notion of the internship, clinical experience, and experiential learning. The trouble we had was trying to convince the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that experiential learning could be done in some other field than education. They kept saying to me that's a teacher ed model, and not everybody should be out there doing it. It took 2 years to get our fourth-year program approved, third and fourth-year program, with a full semester studying, working in the field under the guidance. It has been a challenge for us, but it's been an opportunity. And we're thrilled to have you here to, all of us, work together to create the next generation of people who are combining the arts and the sciences and the education with experiential learning, and ultimately to jobs, because that is one of the things that, as a parent, I want my kids to have, is a job.